Previous video, we looked at a SQL Alchemy database, which had a single table of data with the planets in it. And we defined it, we loaded the data, we queried it. And then our main objective in the previous video was to take the results of a query over the planets table and to put that data into an HTML table. And here we're going to do a small but fun extension, and we're going to add what I'm going to call a data table functionality. So I'm going to use a data table, some data table library that works with JQuery, and sort of create that same table, but with a few extra lines, give it a lot more functionality where it is sortable and searchable. Okay, so the same starting point, the definition of our little planet database, ID, primary key, name, distance, period, file to read a CSV file and load and add, which basically does the SQL Alchemy, does an insert for us and a commit. A query, this basic query queries the data table and then spits it out down here in the terminal. And then finally the Flask. We were in routes. And what we previously had, our default route was directed to the table, and the table route sent over this result underscore dict. And that was from querying the planet table of the database and getting all the results. And then there was this little list comprehension that used a dunder dict to cast all the elements of the list as dictionaries. And that's what we passed over. And then that was read by this planet table. And I did it in two ways. One where I said, I know what the fields are, and another in which I let them sort of be discovered. And what I'm going to do next could also be done either of those ways. This time I'm only going to do it once. So now I've added back to my routes, I'm adding another, so that was the planet table. Now I'm adding a new route, planet data table, and sending it the same data. So there's no difference in the data I'm sending it. So there's no difference in what's happening with SQL Alchemy. And there's not going to be too much difference in the data table, HTML. The main difference is going to be in the layout. So here, I'm using a different, I'm extending a different layout, the data table layout, rather than the simple layout. So all the difference will be there. This is basically the same as my second. So my planet, on my second version here, I sort of looped over the planet items and grabbed their keys and then their values. And planet data table, I'm doing the same. So the ginge is the same, the querying's the same, the data is the same, the ginge is the same. All the difference lies really just in this layout. So the simple layout just had basically HTML and Jinja, whereas and now I've added, sorry, this part is new because now I have two routes. I added some navigation between the two routes, and I added it to both layouts. So I usually put my navigation in the layout, and I put it in both layouts because I have two layouts, one that is pure like HTML and Jinja, and then another layout, the data table layout, which has HTML, Jinja, and JavaScript, and specifically some jQuery. Okay, so here, these lines are the big a difference 10 through 18 here. So here's just the navigation and the usual setting up of the Jinja blocks. So all of the big difference here is in these lines, these script lines, these JavaScript lines. And so in 10, I am connecting to a jQuery CDN. I haven't done this in a while, so that's probably not the most recent, but recent enough. And then in line 11 there, another script, another connection to a CDN, and this is for this data table functionality. And then there is line 12 is the data table also has a style associated with it. So I have an external link to that style sheet in 12. 13 is my style sheet, and so that was in simple layout. So that line 13 there is not new. That one's old. And then here 14 through 18 is this jQuery code that says anytime, so document ready is like when the document loads. So when the document loads, we are going to apply to any table the data table functionality. So this the $ and then the name of the table. So I don't have, if I had a pound, it would be looking for an ID. If I had a dot, it would be looking for a class, but I just have table. So that means I'm going by tag name. So any table it finds, it's going to apply this data table functionality. So that's something that the data table library understands, and then the data table library works on the jQuery library. So that's it. This is the heart of the addition, and we're not going to go through that code. We're just going to say for this addition, look at what you get. So let me go to the route and run the route. And I took out some of my prints so I could get to the URL more easily. So I added, so now I'm going, my default route is still the plain old HTML table route, except I've added this little bit of navigation. So there were the two tables that I made previously, and these are sort of, I don't know, static HTML. I mean, they're generated from data that's passed over, but once they're made, they don't do much. So now let me go over to data table. So we're bringing in this JavaScript library jQuery, and then on top of that, the data table library. And I still have this funky ordering because I chose my second table. I probably should have chosen my first style of table. Then I would have controlled the order of the columns. But here's what a data table. Now, one thing it gives you is how many item entries you're showing on the page. And the default goes 10, 25, 50, 100. Well, I only have 9 planets, so you can't see much of what that would do. But that would change the number of items I'm showing per page. And that works in conjunction with this sort of paging down here on the lower right. And again, I only have 9 planets, so you don't get to really see the paging functionality, but there is this move through the pages, previous, next, and that sort of comes for free if you have, when you make a data table, if you have a lot of data. So this data is not exploiting that feature because there's so a few planets. Maybe if I added all the asteroids or something, then we'd be talking. But we get sorting. So I can sort on any of these fields. Now, it so happens that the IDs and the periods and the distance, because of the nature of Kepler's law, that sorting is the same for all those columns, but the name sorting is different. So I can sort based on alphabetically on the name. So then Earth comes first. But if I can sort on the distance, or I can sort on period, or I can sort on the ID. But again, those sortings all happen to be the same. And then I can descend or ascend on any column. And then there is a search. So I can just put in a P and then all of the P's. Now I have just numbers, floats, and IDs and integers. So only the names have the name, but I've picked out only the names that have a P in it: Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto. And then if I do an L, I have just Pluto. So that is the data table functionality, which was gained by editing. I created a new layout to distinguish it from this old layout. So the simple layout was the old, just pure HTML. Over here, I added these CDN links, and then this little script here that is applying the data table functionality to any table. Or if I wanted, I could over here say in Planet Data Table, I could have given my table an ID or a class, and then I could have in the code, where am I at now? Not simple layout, but data table layout. I could have, right now it's directed at all tables. I could have directed it at a specific table with an ID or a set of tables through a class. But that's a nice bit of functionality for, a handful of lines of Java script. So that's what I wanted to show you on this one. Thanks for your attention.